So guys, we're going to jump in and look at the wonderful world of aquatic isopods and how I built an enclosure for them. So as you can see, these guys are roaming around. I started them off in a very basic jar setup, just as a temporary. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to keep them alive or not. Everything online has variable conditional requirements for them. But after about a year, I decided that I should expand them from the simplistic jar that I had them in and transfer them into a proper display type setup. So I had a big rock from the creek that I collected them in, which is there, and I removed it, obviously, prior to wanting to empty out the jar into this white container so that I could sort through the broken down leaves and waste rather than transferring all that into the new setup with them. These guys, just like normal isopods that we all keep commonly for bioactive setups or just pets, do like to eat leaves. They also like to eat algae and biofilms, so that's why I like to include the rocks in the enclosure. They don't get terribly large, about a 1/4 inch to maybe 3/8 of an inch in length, I would say. But they're very interesting nonetheless, commonly living under rocks and among algae in streams and creeks that aren't too fast flowing of water. So this is a 8-inch tank. I wanted to use marine biopure as it is a filter media, which the center of it generally will go anaerobic, breaking down nitrates and things like that for you, as well as holding a vast amount of biological bacteria to help with the cycling process. And in turn also providing a good source of biofilm growth for the isopods to eat. I knew I wanted to have the large rock as kind of a focal point, but with having both pieces, it was a bit higher than what I would have liked. So I started by laying out the 3 main stones that I knew were going to be the larger factor to the design of the tank. I wanted to put the river stones because they were larger and I knew that they had to go underneath the 2 bigger stones to lay flat on the bottom to fill in the space and voids a little bit more, creating more caves and surface area where the isopods can go underneath and breed, run amok, and feel more at home. When working with larger stones like this, you really want to make sure that they're stable, because there is a strong possibility that they can roll forward, and, well, as we all know, glass is relatively fragile and breaks. So I piled up smaller rocks in between just to add not only more structure, but make it more natural looking as well. trying to fill in all the small voids and things like that is a lot easier said than done when you have a limited supply of rocks that you've collected or purchased in this case. I decided to add some of our springtail clay rather than a sand or a gravel that you would typically add to a fish tank, just for the extra calcium, and I thought it might give a more natural feel for the animals, as well as a potential for a food source, which I wasn't sure if they would eat or not. Updates on that will be in the future. Tried to fill in all those spaces that I knew I didn't have enough small river stone for. And of course I had to add one of my bottles that, well, I commonly collect them out of creek beds and things like that, so it was a little bit of a personal touch. Spraying down the clay like I am right now, I was hoping it would prevent a lot of the clouding or just stirring up of it when I started to fill the tank fully with water. I like to pre-boil all of my botanics, so this is a mixture of oak leaves, maple leaves, and some sweet gum balls that I collected while I was on a hike. So I pre-boil them not only to make sure that I'm not introducing any nasty little critters into the enclosure, but to soften them up and make them sink a little bit faster than what they normally would, since I don't really want them floating on the surface. There's the sweet gum balls for anyone who's not sure what they are. They remind me of little medieval maces, but they're a seed pod of, you guessed it, a sweet gum tree. I typically use Seachem's Prime just because of how concentrated it is. It's more cost efficient when you're working with large amounts of fish tanks or really anything. So as I start to top off, or, well, fill the tank, you can see that the clay the clay theory did kind of work as far as wetting it down prior to filling, but it still did fog up a bit and stir up. Even though I tried to pour it slowly and prevent as much of this stirring up as possible, wasn't quite lucky enough. So I did end up, well, filling to the point where you'll see in a minute here about half full, and draining it several times, about 10 to 12 times, before we got to this point here where I was happy with the clarity of things. I decided to finally top off the tank fully. So once we got the tank fully full, I decided to float the isopods that we collected from our white bin at the beginning, that I had put in a 16-ounce deli container, just to equalize their water temperature a little bit, even though I believe they're hardy enough that this shouldn't affect them much. And I released them. And there you have it, guys. Check your local creeks and maybe you'll find some aquatic friends of your own. Thank you for watching.